If I wanted to start my lending business from scratch and scale from $0 to $10,000 per month, it is not as simple as just putting my head down and sending a million DMs on Facebook. Sure, that can absolutely get you going, but it is not going to get you anywhere close to your goal fast. I hit my first $10,000 a month lending within 60 days of getting started. In the 12 months since then, I have not dropped below that number one time. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it and what I would do if I had to do it completely over again. But let's start with the uncomfortable truth. The word deals is a marketing term. The only people who talk about doing deals are people who aren't actually making money. Do you want to do deals or do you want to make six figures and quit your job? I'm going to run with the latter. So if we forget about deals, here's what we can focus on instead. How can I make the most amount of money with the least amount of effort? Sounds pretty nice, right? Here's my 3 responses to that and why I would do them. And you'll see by the end of this video, the last thing that I talk about can single-handedly make you more money than you could ever imagine for your business. And it's something that I am just now starting to uncover. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with larger EMD. Larger EMD is an absolute killer in scaling your business up to the numbers that you want to see. But it's also one of the most quickly forgotten or more often not even considered parts of a transactional lending business. And here's why. Seems pretty obvious, but it costs more money, right? Now, if you want to look at this from a perspective of raising capital, right? Or just doing deals in general. Let's say you had a deal that was $5,000, right? $5,000 EMD. If you had a 5K EMD, there's basically infinite, I don't want to pretend like $5,000 is not a lot of money, but there's basically an infinite amount of people that can do that deal. Now, if you instead had a $100,000 deal, then you might only be looking at, let's say, 100 people. It's not actually true, but I'm just picking that number for you. And if only 100 people can do this deal, not only is it naturally going to be a harder deal, but it's going to be harder for you to get your mind around because likely one of those 100 people is not you. Right? And so this is where I want to start, is that with the larger EMDs, you have to understand the fact that you're going to have to work with other people. And it's not nearly as scary as you think, but if you can elevate your mindset, I want to show you the actual numbers here, right? So let's say you can only handle up to $5,000, right? Or let's actually say you can only handle up to $2,500. So if you do a $2,500 EMD, and you're like, I can handle that all on my own, then that means for each deal you do, you're going to make $1,000, right? Great. Now, the objective of this video today is to talk about how you can get to $10,000 as quickly as possible, right? So if you're doing this $2,500 deal and you make $1,000, then that means you would have to do 10 deals to make $10,000, right? Multiply this by 10, and that'll equal 10 grand. Mathematically speaking, this checks out. However, it's not true. Why is it not true? Because not all deals close, of course. Now, my personal number right now, which is, I would say, significantly lower than you might expect because of how much I help other people, right, with newer deals. My numbers drop down a lot. But I see 60% of my deals closing. 60%. So for math's sake, we'll talk about in that light, 60% of the deals closing. Now, I'm going to fry my brain trying to figure this out, but if we did 20 deals, 50% of that would be 10. So a little bit less. So what's that, 18 probably? So that would mean you wouldn't need times 10, you would need times 18 in order to get to $10,000 a month. So 18 deals, you can only lend on weekdays. Essentially means you're doing a deal every single weekday of that month, right? Every single business day of the month. My point in all this is that you can go so much faster without your own money if you just understand the concept of getting into these larger deals. So let's do a comparison. So we've got our $2,500 that you're going to make $1,000 on, and you're going to use your own money, right? Great. Now, let's take this 100K deal and say you're going to make 40 freaking grand on this deal, but oh no, I don't have my own money. So you split it with a partner. And yes, if you're watching this video right now and you have a $100,000 EMD, that's a solid vetted deal that's going to make 40 grand, I can raise that money for you in about half a second. And so can you, right? So now, oh no, we split this in half and you make 20 grand. That means that in one deal, you can make enough money to cover 2 months of your goal just from that one deal without any of your own money. Now, if that doesn't get you excited and show you the potential of scaling this business, then I don't know what the heck will, because when I realized the math behind this stuff, the fact that the numbers go up and so do the returns and pretty much everything else stays the same, it's mind-boggling. So if you are not understanding of this concept, just know that when you're doing these $2,500 deals, use those as a launch point, but understand that that is not likely going to get you to the goal that you want to achieve. It's too little, it's too slow, and it's not going to give you that consistency and even those big chunks that can potentially help offset, right? If you're just barely scraping 10K each month and then you have a bad month, you got nothing. But if you're hitting 50, 60, 100K months, then obviously you got way more leeway on the downside for that 10K month. So larger EMD is the first one. Now, then of course the question becomes, well, where did the larger EMDs come from? And this is kind of an obvious answer. It's just not as obvious when you're actually putting it into practice, but larger EMD comes from larger deals. Now, there's a lot of different larger deals, right? There is apartments, and by the way, everything I'll share today is things that I've actually experienced, right? There's apartments, RV parks, mobile home parks. I'll just put MHP. Apartments, RV parks, mobile home parks, luxury, right? The list goes on. It's things that cost more money at the end of the day. You can even throw in there something like EMD for a business, or my biggest strange one, EMD for a jet. Who would have thought, right? But the point is, the more expensive the item, on average, by percentage, the more expensive the EMD. The EMD is more expensive, and you can still get the same return. Go do that, you'll make way more money, you'll get to your goal way quicker, there'll be way less headache, way less overhead, way less to manage. It's like a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. It is the best of all of those things. Now, the downside, of course, is that not all of these deals close, and it's a larger amount of money, so you are going to want to make sure that you are double, triple, quadruple protected, and everything is in place, which is why you just do bigger deals with people who have the confidence and experience to do them. That's all it is. People that are afraid to do deals with other people, I want to keep all my money for myself. Perfect. You can keep that $1,000 for yourself, and the $100,000 deals will get done by someone else because you're too afraid to actually get out of your own shell and go do deals with other people. But if you're somebody watching this that actually, you're not just saying it, you're actually showing by your actions that you want to scale and grow a business like this, then this is the first step, is going bigger, partnering up, getting uncomfortable, doing the things that you haven't done before so that you can experience and do them. Before I had never done a $100,000 EMD, I had never done one. I had to go do it, right? You have to go find those things that you can do to get the results that you're looking for. So step one is phasing out from the smaller stuff and going to the larger EMD. And if I wanted to grow a $10,000 a month blending business as fast as possible, this would be the first place that I would start. All right, now the second thing that I would really hone in on if I was trying to build a $10,000 per month lending business is double closes. Without a doubt, absolute killers. I did not utilize this strategy when I was getting started. I didn't even know what the heck it was. And in my mind, I thought those take way too much money to get into. A lot of you guys probably either feel or have felt the same way. But let's talk about a double closing. So let's say $500,000 here. I would say on average right now, my double close is actually pretty small. I don't know if it's because of the deals I'm doing or if that's normal. But so let me actually change this example just so that it's as fair as possible. So I would say my average is about 200,000. And if you look at the double closes I've done, they've either been around 200,000 or like 1 million plus. I don't know why there's so much variation between the two. But let's start with the 200,000. So on a $200,000 double close, I personally charge 1.5%, typically speaking. Now, the range on double closes is usually anywhere from like 1 to 3%, but I'm kind of right in between, so we'll just use my number here. So 1% of this would be what? $2,000, right? So I'm going to be doing $3K in profit. $3,000 in profit for this $200,000 deal. Now, again, let's assume you don't have the money, right? Which most people don't, or even if you do, it's not usually liquid, especially if you're in the real estate realm. But you can make $3,000 on this deal. The way that I structure these deals, a lot of you guys ask this all the time, is that I'll find somebody for that 200K. I'll JV with them. The conversation, if you have the credibility and the authority and all those other things and the experience to know what you're doing, or if you're working with somebody with experience, that makes your life 10 times easier. But let's say you're the one bringing the deal and you're just asking them to bring the money. The conversation is really easy. It's, hey, can you bring $200,000 to this deal for 1 hour and you're gonna make half that, so $1,500. You make $1,500 just for wiring it and getting it back. And as long as everything else is in place, especially with something like double close, that's exactly what's gonna happen, right? So you can JV on this deal, find somebody with the $200,000. If you're not already involved in a community that's doing deals like this where it's really easy to raise that capital, you can always join FundWise free. You guys already know, first link in the description, it's completely free, and this is how I raise my capital, right? I say, hey, I got a deal, and then somebody jumps in. So $200,000 JV, you're gonna make $3,000. That means we've got 1.5K and 1.5K. Now, the cool thing about this is that one EMD deal takes 30 days, right? So the example that we gave before this, which I probably should have brought up, is that if you do that example of the 2,500 that produces $1,000, 1,000, right? And you did 18 of those, I think is what I said, in order to make that 10 grand. Well, the other thing is that if you're gonna do 18 of these a month, then that means you need 18 times 2,500, which is 3645, right? So you need $45,000 out for 30 days. On the contrary, this $200,000, even though it's 4 times the amount of money, almost 5 times the amount of money, the big thing here is that this $200,000 and all this stuff happens in typically under an hour. The only real time constraint on a double closing is simply the time it takes for the money to clear and then the time it takes for the money to clear back when it gets wired back. That's it. If you have everything set up and you know what you're doing, that's all the time. So this $45,000 is sitting for 30 days, and side note, it's not usually actually 30 days, more like 45 plus because deals take forever. That's 45 grand that is harder to raise because now you're asking somebody to send their money out for a long time. Whereas this $200,000, boom, it's like that. And on top of that, you get the instant gratification of making $1.5 thousand in like an hour, and it comes right into your bank account, and then you're like, woo, let's go do that again, right? Now, 1.5 thousand, if you're dividing by 10 by that, gosh, I'm killing myself with the math here, but it's gonna be 7 deals, right? That'll be 10 and a half. So if you can do 7 deals, we'll just say 2 a week, then you're gonna hit your goal at that 200,000 number. But as it goes, this number just scales up, right? So like objectively, if you can just find $1 million double close, which is less common for sure, but if you can just find $1 million double close, you're charging the same rate, that is what, $10,500? I think I'm doing that math right. You split that, so you do 2 of those deals, boom, you're good to go. So the point of this is that when you're looking to scale to that 10K a month business, you've got to look at these deals that are quicker, that are higher return. Are they harder to find? Sure. Hard is a relative word here. People say hard because they don't know how to actually do it. But if you know what you're doing and you're looking for these bigger deals, like let's say for example you're just looking for this $1 million double close. It might take you a month to find it, but when you find it after that month, you're going to make more than this person doing the $2,500 EMD dids for the entire month. And all you were doing was looking. You didn't have the stress of communication, of having money out, of trying to figure out what was going on, dealing with contracts, dealing with bad borrowers. You didn't have any of that. You just had to find the deal, right? And once you find the deal, boom, it's done in an instant. And it's a fantastic way to make your money multiply much quicker. So the $200,000 double close going up to technically infinite amounts, let's say up to 5 million. This is how you can make money fast and get closer to that 10K a month goal in way less time. And not only that, but you can 10x it, right? I mean, you can blow past. I know a lot of people watching this right now, you're like 10K a month feels really far. I get that, but once you understand the leverage that you can take on deals like this, game over. You are going to scale to the moon, because the even better part about building this 10K a month business that most people miss is that when you're trying to generate this income, one time generating the income doesn't do anything. This is where all wholesalers absolutely get destroyed because nobody talks about this. They don't understand the concept They go do all their hard work, they get a wholesale deal, and then what do they have to do? They got to go do it all again. The first person I found that I did a $200,000 double closing with, it was actually right at that number too, I think, maybe 180. They came back 2 weeks later, and we did another one. And then they came back, I think 3 weeks after that, and we did another one. And we continue to work together. When you talk about 10K a month, it's about getting predictable revenue. And when you're doing double closings, maybe not a lot of people do them, but the people that do them, typically, in my personal experience, continue to do them, which is what makes them so effective, so powerful. So if you can find this, and you can make that $1,500, and then they come back 2 weeks later, and they do it again, then this one borrower has brought you $3,000, which means that if you don't do anything else, and you just find 3 people that are doing this every 2 weeks, that's $9,000 a month. Maybe one's a little bigger, that gets you to $10,000, right? You see how you can really simplify this stuff and break it down? And if I was doing this again, I'm telling you guys, the larger EMD, step 1, that's the easiest one to find. They're just bigger deals, and they're actually really easy to find in my personal opinion, because once you get past the really tiny stuff, you weed out 99% of people, because most people have no freaking idea what they're doing, but they're like, oh, I can do this $1,000 EMD, and if I mess it up, like, it'll be a learning experience, and I'll just lose the money, and it's okay. People don't do that with $100,000, right? So just skip the line, forget all that crap, go do the $100,000 EMD, and then boom, you're making a whole bunch of money, and you have now proven to people that you actually want to be working with that you can do what the heck you say you can do, and it just grows from there. Do the bigger EMD. Start working on the double closes now. Maybe you won't find a deal in the first month. Who cares? Learn the process of double closing. Start talking with people that you can potentially do deals with. Again, inside of FunWise, that's not a problem. People have got you covered. Anybody that knows what the heck they're doing is down to make money off of things that you've spent your hard time doing, because they spent all their hard time and effort making the money, right? So they just put the money in, boom, money comes back. That's like everybody's dream scenario. So once you do the large EMDs, get into the double closings, scale those up. Look for the big dogs. It may not be perfect the first time, but I promise you, if you combine those two things with the last thing we're about to talk about, $10,000 a month lending business is going to be on the back burner, because you're going to be trying to figure out how to get that thing to $50,000 to $100,000, because all of this stuff scales, and wholesaling doesn't scale, and neither do your tiny deals. But if you can just go straight to this, game changer. Now, my third, final, and maybe slightly secret strategy that I'm just starting to heavily introduce into my business is the Morby method, as it's been coined. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about this and why it's so effective, and how I think it can absolutely explode your business the way it has mine and a few other people's that I'm working with right now, so that you can go absolutely psycho. Because here's the thing about a Morby method. I'm going to give you a super high level breakdown. This is not a Morby method video. If you're going to buy something for $1 million, right? Apartment complex, it's going to be a small apartment complex. Let's say quadplex. I don't know. You're going to buy it for $1 million. And you have somebody coming in saying that they are willing to fund 70% of that, right? It's usually going to be a DSCR lender, an investor type loan, right? Then that would be $700,000, which would mean that you would need to bring that difference of $300,000 to the table. However, when you're utilizing this method, what you can do is you can go back to the seller and say, hey, look, you got a ton of equity in this thing. You're going to be balling out. You don't need it all, right? This is a conversation you can have. I'll pay you the $1 million. Would you be willing to sell or finance 400,000 of that? SF. 400K on this deal, and I'll give you 600,000 up front. And if you can have those situation scenarios come into play, which by the way, there is a ton of deals that you can do this on, and the reason why not as many people do it is because they don't understand how to do it correctly, or they aren't willing to learn. And guess what? How do you make the most money in any business in existence? You solve problems, and even better than that, you solve problems that are in high demand and low supply. Enter the conversation we're about to have. On this deal, if they agree and they say, yeah, we'll sell finance you 400 grand, we'll get 600 grand up front. It's all the money we freaking need to do whatever the heck it is we're trying to do. We'll sell finance to this, to you, you make payments to us. Fantastic. Now what you can do is you can take that 400 grand, use it to cover the 300 grand down payment that you were gonna make, and you're going to profit 100 grand. Yes, I'm saying you can get paid $100,000 to buy this property. Insane. Now there's a lot of things that go into these deals. And the biggest thing is the agreement and the full breakdown and paperwork between the seller financing that 400 grand and your lender coming in and bringing this $100,000. This is where people get stuck because there's a lot of nuances and, quite frankly, a little bit of sketchiness that oftentimes I've seen go on in scenarios like this, but it doesn't have to be that way. You just got to figure out how to do this crap correctly. And so when we're looking at these deals, if this comes into play, right? If it comes into play, it's very similar to the double closings that we just talked about, because the lender's going to bring the $700,000. To get to that $1 million purchase price, you got to bring the $300,000, and then what happens is when the deal closes, then the seller finance note comes into play. Okay? So that's my super high level scenario to set the stage for you on what I'm about to show you. Now, when we are working with this, that $300,000 that I talked about for that down payment is going to be needed at closing. It's just like on a double closing. The liquid funds have to be there. But once that $300,000 shows up, it immediately gets covered by $400,000, aka $100,000 profit. Now, why is this strategy so insane and borderline something I would consider building my whole business around and forgetting everything else? Even though I talked about those other two, I said this would be the biggest one, right? Because this $300,000 is going to create $400,000 out of thin air. Not actually out of thin air, it's out of equity. But it's going to create that $400,000, which means that you're going to have that $100,000 gap, right? And so, what I have found to be true, when you do a double closing, right, the $200,000 example I gave, you get paid that $3,000 fee. That comes directly out of the wholesaler fee. It's painful, right? The wholesaler's like, I was gonna make 10 grand, but I have to pay 3 of that to homeboy over here. So now I only get to make 7 grand, right? It hurts. Not with these, because this is like Monopoly. You're playing a game at this point. This is leveraged money, not cash. So when the seller is financing that $400,000 like we talked about, that is leveraged money because you're going to be making them payments. It's not, I was going to make 400 grand, now I'm going to only make 300 grand. It's everybody's happy, this gets leveraged, the seller makes more money over time, you don't have to come up with the down payment. It's fantastic, and as long as you can come to terms with that and with the lender and all of these things that I'm not going to talk about on this video, then this becomes a killer scenario. Because if there's a $100,000 profit right here, and you got to come up with this, this allows for higher margins. It allows you to make higher margins potentially on the deal. And so what I've seen on these is that even though they're similar to a double closing, there's more paperwork, there is more risk, especially if you don't know what you're doing, and sometimes they can be significantly more work depending on how you set it up, because there's a lot of way to structure these deals, which again is why most people aren't willing to learn this and therefore don't get to make all the money. But if you bring this $300,000 and there's going to be $100,000 in net profit going to the buyer of this deal, which is absolutely psycho, then I found that I can charge a much higher rate, anywhere from 2 to even 10% rate on deals like this. 2 to 10%. Now, what does that mean? Well, this $300,000, which by the way is about the average I've found for these deals, right? And I've seen them way higher. These ones get way, way bigger. But let's say the $300,000 just for the example I'm giving. If you do the $300,000 and you charge in the middle, right here, right? 5%. Which is pretty high, to be fair. But there's big margins, right? And it's all kind of magical Monopoly money. You charge 5% on that 300 grand, then you're making $15,000. So that means that with the same amount of money that you were going to use on these other deals, in literally a day, in a split second, you can take this money and turn it into enough money to cover 1.5 months of your targeted 10K a month, right? And on top of that, and this is where this crap gets crazy, I'm going to be shooting more videos for you guys on this stuff. On top of that, when you figure out how to do this correctly, and you find solid borrowers that are doing these kinds of transactions, your borrower, even if they pay you 15 grand, that means they made 85, right? They made freaking $85,000 in this example, and bought $1 million property. Psycho. It's probably hard for some people to imagine this, but this is real. This is happening. I'm landing on these deals all the time. They made 85 grand. Do you think that they're going to want to go find another deal and do the same thing? Yeah, they're going to want to go find another one. And the crazy part about it is that there's an abundance of them because most people don't understand how to do this. So the deals are out there everywhere. You just have to learn how to do it. And so if you learn this and you work with this borrower, which is what I'm establishing right now that I'm going to talk to you guys more about in the future, is that you establish a relationship with this borrower and you say, yo, let's go do a bunch of these deals because this is awesome. Everybody's winning. The seller makes more money. The buyer gets paid to buy properties. And you can get a higher return, do more deals, get more consistency, and get to that 10K a month business. This is how you take advantage of this. Now, again, there's some sketchiness that goes on sometimes with these deals where basically people try to not tell the lender that there's going to be a seller finance portion. It's like kind of like with wholesaling where everything's sketchy. Don't live in the gray area. Screw the gray area. If you want to grow a business, figure out how to do it correctly. Talk with lenders, talk with the borrowers, talk with the sellers, come up with something that is legal, allowed, agreeable, and then use that, because if you are leveraging off of something solid, right, you build the solid foundation, that's how you can scale your business to the moon. This is a crazy unlock, a crazy concept that you can take advantage, and it's only one of the 3 things that I brought up in this video, but if you can take advantage of all 3 of these together, I need you to comprehend what I'm talking about right now. Is this going to happen overnight? Heck no. But if I got dropped on a random island in the middle of nowhere with the skills and the knowledge that I have now about this stuff, a 10K a month lending business would not even be close to the vision that I have for what's going to go on. Because I know how to do this method. I know how to find double closes, and I know how to get the bigger EMDs, and I have a community of people where you can raise that capital in the snap of a finger. And I do that all the time. So if you're somebody that is getting started or maybe hasn't been able to get to the momentum, these 3 things are exactly what I would do to grow and scale my business to and then well past $10,000 as quickly as possible. It gives you the lessons and the knowledge you need while being even more uncomfortable, doing bigger things, and by getting into those bigger deals and being uncomfortable, that means you have to go do them with other people, which means that you build those relationships, you build relationships with the borrower, you get uncomfortable, which helps you grow faster. It's a win-win-win all the way around, and you can scale so much quicker. So if you're somebody watching this that wants to build a legitimate business, replace their income, and scale a business, go big or go home. Learn these concepts. Talk to other people that are doing them. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and your business will scale. Stop playing around with the tiny stuff. Go for the big stuff. This is how I scaled my business past 6 figures and will likely scale it past 7 figures this year. You can use the same strategies. I want to help you in any possible way that I can. So if this video was helpful, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep talking about this stuff. And if you want to join a community doing this stuff, first link in the description. Join Bumwise free. Learn more about it. I do free trainings every single week, and I will see you guys in the next video.